There we are once again. Here we come, the Duuuval Dive, a Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on the Jaguar Report, and then my co-host, Travis Holmes, the champion himself of Big Cat Country. What's going on, my man?
Man, I'm doing well. Right, getting over these IT issues, and it's been a great day overall, though.
Hey, but listen, I figured you'd be doing pretty well after a relatively dominant win over the Atlanta Falcons there on the other side. What would appear to be the Jacksonville Jaguars' second home, where they are undefeated and 0-2 at Everbank Stadium in an unfortunate turn of events. But hey, listen, weird things happen. Sports, am I right, Travis? No, but listen, what was that?
Yeah. I mean, again, the fact that they are 0-2 at home, but also 1-0 at their second home, it's positive. It's a positive development, but also let's get them victories at home. But we'll worry about that when they get back over into the States.
Right. I mean, they do return on the 15th after this upcoming game to host the Colts, where they do relatively well, but then they kind of broke the chain over there in Indy at Lucas Oil, and whatever. Let's not get too far into that, and I don't want to jinx anybody and whatever. But here, listen, when it comes to this Falcons game, the second highest scoring game for the Jaguars this year, the first one, of course, being the top one being the Lucas Oil Stadium season opener that I mentioned before. But all the talk about points, it was the defense that carried the effort, I think. There's all sorts of talk. You got Josh Allen, another 3-sack game. Yes. Desmond Ridder, 3 turnovers. Taylor Heineke never came in, so that was never a problem. Josh Allen tied among the top 3 in sacks in the league right now on the strength of that game. But I want to take it here, Travis. Your background is as a defensive back. The talk now is that Andre Cisco is an NFL best, among the NFL's best at the safety position. What say you on that?
Hey, man, the film says he is. The stats say he is. I say he is. And until someone shows me otherwise, this man's balling out of control. He's getting his hands on a lot of balls. And again, and in spite of the fact that he's only supposedly ranked, by the different media outlets as a top 4 to top 5 safety right now.
Only
only top 4 and top 5. And I say that was sapping sarcasm, but he's had his hands on 2 or 3 more interceptions. Now, when we spoke about it, we talked about the one in the Kansas City game, where he almost had the interception on the sideline, had his hands on another one in Indy. And I'm just like, this dude could easily have 2 to 3 more interceptions, and we wouldn't be having a conversation of him being a top 4 or 5 safety in the league. We'd be putting this dude in the top 2 to 3.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I remember the drop in KC. I forgot about the one in Indy. And listen, but I did enjoy, though, in Kansas City, the interception he did get, rescuing a fallen corner.
Trey Herndon, yeah.
That getting that bailed out, a bailout interception like that just adds a little bit more to it, especially when it's Patrick Lavon Mahomes II. Certainly he and the crew were instrumental in the slow game that Travis Kelce had that week. Also, we had not realized the power of Taylor Swift. Maybe if she were in Jacksonville, he would have caught us. I don't know. Let's stop talking about Taylor Swift. But we talk all this stuff about stuff in the pass game. That stopping the ground game is important. That's what this team's designed for. And we mentioned last week going in this game, we were less worried about Desmond Ridder, and rightly so. But Bijan Robinson was the threat. And other than a 36, 38-yard home run gain that he had, was pretty much quiet for the rest of the day. Yes, on the day he was bigger than the 84 yards per game average that the Jags were allowing on the ground. But if you take out that big run, he's below the average in question. It's just about that one big play. But listen, Bijan Robinson is going to be a Rookie of the Year candidate, and you expected him to break one big one off, right?
Right, and that was the big part. It was less about making sure, less about stopping Bijan cold turkey, but more about making sure you stop everyone around him and limit what he can do. And they did a great job at that. Like, again, to your point, if you take away that 138-yard run, I mean, you're looking at what he's 13 of, let's say, 70 yards, 80 yards, something along those lines. It's not a bad game, but it's just not a great game, especially when your team's doing nothing around you. And they also limited Tyler Aguilar. He was 7 of 16, 2.3 yards a carry. So if you're just taking away that one big outside zone play, hey, they did an incredible job. And tip of the cap. Yes, tip of the cap. There you go. To Fatukasi, Fatukasi, Adam Gostis, Aluakan, all those guys in the middle.
Fatukasi. I'm glad you brought him up. I practiced saying his name. So yeah, Lorenzo Fatukasi. He was actually called out in the top 5 players to watch by my buddy Dan Griffiths over at the Jaguar Report. Bing! But he may or may not have had a suggestion about him being listed from the Twitter message group. Not going to imply who that might have been, but he is 6'5" with a nice little golden brown tan and 290 pounds. Anyways, so with all that in mind, that really puts a bow on the point I was making too about the NFL safety position. You got to be able to stop that run too. And the reason why, albeit only a top 5 safety, is Andre Cisco. Stopping that run, he's a big element of that too, and I think that has to be accounted for. And the state of the safety position in the NFL is seen as being less. Granted, part of it was being spoiled by a generation of safeties all at the same time. Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, John Lynch, guys like this that were rampant. I know I'm leaving names out even, but with all of that in play, you don't have any real big names like that there too. But Cisco is certainly in the question, and I don't know if the safety position is necessarily going down in talent as much as quarterbacks are getting better, or you're coming out with more complicated offenses. Could be aspects of both. But listen, we've established Andre Cisco as one of the top guys, one would say.
Well, that's an interesting one because I don't know that the safety position's necessarily going down. It's just that obviously the rules have made it so much easier for offenses to move the ball. They've also made it super illegal for a lot of the heavy hitter, safeties to kind of make their bread because they're going to be kind of legislated out of the league. And
like Lynch, the aforementioned.
Yeah. So now at this point, you're only looking at just those rangy safeties, and the ones who are true ball hawks are the ones who are able to truly make a living these days. So unfortunately, that results in you having a few less guys at the top, those top tier guys to make a name for themselves because those other guys are kind of just out of the league at this point.
And listen, between Josh Allen's 3 sacks, Trayvon Walker with the sack, I know it's not as many as Aiden Hutchinson. Settle down. Walker was drafted with the run in mind, not the pass rush. Remember, don't use Captain Hindsight. When he was drafted, Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry were issues. Jonathan Taylor hadn't gotten injured yet. And we all thought that Colts team was going to be better than that was. We don't need to bring that up.
No, that you're right. That's fair. When he was drafted, the point of emphasis was, hey, can we stop the run and stop the bleeding, and we'll worry about working. We'll fill the rest of this in after the fact. Can we just stop these 2 guys and also, Damian, what was it, Pierce? Damian Pierce, also in Houston. Like they didn't have the quarterbacks, so. Now that we've established we can stop the run, now we have to resolve the other issue of not having that second pass rusher. But the draft pick worked at the time. It just a year later seems like an analog computer in a digital time frame or a blockbuster video in Netflix's time.
I mean, I wasn't going to go quite that harsh, but there's certainly an element of obsolescence attacking the run. We don't know how much longer Derrick Henry's going to be playing. We don't know if Jonathan Taylor's going to still be in Indianapolis after the end of this year, but we do know Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud especially. Anthony Richardson looking good, C.J. Stroud looking great so far. And you have to, if that holds true throughout the rest of this year, and Anthony Richardson in particular stays healthy enough, if both of them stay healthy enough, of course, obviously we'll say, just in the sake of consideration, it would be time to start going after the Devin Witherspoons and the Joey Porter Juniors that I was banging the table for. It was really tough watching him get that pick 6 with Seattle against New York on Monday night, but that's okay. That's okay. The victory still took place. The defense still put up points in a game that was the highest scoring for the Jags this year. And I hit that again to mention that it wasn't really necessarily the offense that carried the game, Travis. And I'll say it was interesting when we're talking about. We got to bring up the offense real quick of this game in particular, because as much as we talked about Rookie of the Year candidate Bijan Robinson for the Falcons, the run game was a factor in other ways, and I don't mean for the Falcons. Trevor Lawrence, huge on the ground for the Jaguars. Talk to me about that a little bit, Travis. What did you see there?
Well, that was such a odd thing, because you could see at some point, either whether it was in practice or whether it was in game after that first series, someone on the coaching staff, someone was in Trevor's ear and told him, "Hey, they are running a lot of these man coverages. They're running a lot of these cover two man coverages where the linebackers and the underneath coverage, they have their back to you. If your first 1 to 2 reads isn't there, take what they give you, run the ball, pick these things up." And that is something that is dire. That is something that is so important for a team who is struggling in those short yardage situations like Jacksonville has been this year.
Right.
And more importantly, those third down conversions, because Trevor was able to make multiple conversions on third down with his legs this game. And it was great to see, because there's something that's going to also be needed this week, since Atlanta and Buffalo play pretty similar defenses.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point too you make about the money down. That would be my biggest concern for the offense in general. I know there's been an element, one could say disappointing or a slow start. Calvin Ridley did get his revenge touchdown, air quotes, against the Falcons. That was nice. But 5 for 14 on third down. Third down has been awful in general this year for the Jacksonville Jaguars, even in the first week where they did put up 31. So, but you mentioned Trevor running. Let's go ahead and take a look at it here. We got some video for this here too, and just the way he sees what he sees to make a play happen.
So this is in the first quarter, where this is 2nd and 7, and Trevor sees again his first 2 reads. They aren't there. The pocket starts collapsing. He just takes off. Atlanta's running a cover 2 man, which means all the linebackers and defensive backs all have their backs to him as soon as he breaks the pocket. And anyone who's ever played Madden knows, how do you beat this defense? You run the ball well. You see this. You have the safeties over the top, and you have the linebackers underneath. You run the ball with the line, or with their running back, or you can run the ball with your quarterback, and you will run them out of that defense. So after that happened, Trevor Lawrence had a 6-yard run, and then this is in the fourth quarter, where now Atlanta is going heavy with the zone coverage, and this is 3rd and 6. He runs it for 7 yards, picks up the first down. Again, his first read isn't there, secondary reason isn't there, immediately goes and picks it up, and that is, again, great for an offense who is struggling to pick up these third down conversions.
And he has it where he's still looking downfield while he does it too. You mentioned that 2nd and 7 to open the clip there. He kind of steps in the pocket. He's looking down first, makes a dodge, still looking, and then breaks out. He's making all the reads. He's being smart about it. He's not taking big hits per se. Not that Trevor's a small dude, but he's not exactly bulky, but he's safe when he's running the football. So for those that fall into it's dangerous to have your quarterback run, conversation, I wasn't worried about Trevor's safety in any of it. And apparently neither was Coach Peterson, because he was so successful running the ball, Travis. You mentioned these 3 he converted for first downs. Mm-hmm. We said earlier, 4 of 15. That means without those 3 ones, right? What are they? 1 for 12, 1 for 11? Yeah. Not great, Bob. You know,
outside of his runs and the plays where he's obviously throwing the ball and completing them, he basically, outside of Trevor Lawrence, the supporting cast needs to do a little bit more to support him.
Now, in fairness, there were some penalties drawn to get some of those down, so it would still go as a miss if you're, looking for it with a pass. But I know, like, for example, I don't know if it was on third down, but there was a big pass interference, for example, that went against the Falcons. All that kind of stuff is a factor there too when converting third down. But nonetheless, their rate has not been good. And actually, Trevor showed so much success running the football. People were so unconcerned about his safety because he was running it safe and all of that. There's even one where I was shouting at the TV when I saw this one here too. Just the opportunity to run screamed at me, Travis.
And this was in the fourth quarter, where we ended up getting a field goal, because this is 3rd and 1. 3rd and 1. And Trevor's right in front of the line to gain. And as you can see, He sees Jermichael Hasty down the field and takes this throw, and there's no room. There's no room available there for that throw. But Doug Peterson mentioned this on Monday in his presser, saying, "Hey, that's one where Trevor just has to tuck it and run it, and he may pick up 15 to 20 yards there." But hey, it's a bang bang decision, but that's got to be he's got to have better situational awareness there because they're using him like he's Steph Curry. He's the point guard. Make those right passes, but ever so often you got to dribble it to the lane and just take what they give you.
Yeah, well, and I'll say in Trevor's defense, right? If it was Calvin Ridley, I could see taking that shot. Heck, if it was Kirk or the tight end Evan Ingram, I can definitely see that. I don't know necessarily that I would like Kirk there as my favorite. He's not the tallest guy, but there's opportunities there if it's an actual receiver. Lot to ask for Jermichael Hasty on that one. And to nitpick the throw ever so slightly, I would have liked it a little bit more in the corner as well. But I can see why he did what he did. But, yeah, it's 3rd and 1 there. He could have fallen forward and gotten it, bro. Like,
fight to give yourself 4 more downs. And that's the biggest piece because now you only got 3 out of it because they didn't want to go for it on 4th down. You could have just picked it up and drawn up a different play or a similar concept the next down.
But again, in his defense too, like we're saying that that's the right play, and I still believe it is. But we all know that if he hits that, Trevor's got that killer instinct now. Let's go,
And you're right, and that's the part that sucks. But that is the crutch of being great. For all the greats, they always say, "Hey, I don't care what chances you take. If you take this chance, it better work. If it doesn't work, you're a chump. But if it works, you're a GOAT."
I can't put it this way. Bum or rum. You're either a bum or you're celebrating with rum. I don't know if that works, but it came from the hip. So we'll go with that.
But no, the same thing happened with AJ Terrell early in the game when he got beat on that double move from Calvin Ridley, right? That was a busted coverage. They were in cover 4. That was absolutely his that was his responsibility, but he sat on the route thinking he was going to get an interception and thinking Trevor was going to get hit. And it didn't work out. And instead, so you could either be a GOAT or you can be a bum. But unfortunately, in that situation, he was a bum and he took an educated guess and he lost it. That's gambling.
There was a day, Travis, where being referred to as a GOAT wasn't an acronym. And it just meant you were like bad. Anyways, just like that joke was. Anyways, speaking of great ones in the league, the upcoming matchup there at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This one was at Wembley. At least they're playing in a different home.
Hotspur.
Is that a 3rd home? I now I'm just getting confused about who's home where. But technically, the Jags are visitors, even though they're the ones already there in the country. But
Buffalo kicked us out of our hotel. That's the biggest piece to that. I'm just like, wow, that's funny. Oh, because Jaguars were staying in that hotel last week against Atlanta, but now Buffalo booked the same hotel, and then the Jaguars had to leave to go to a different hotel. I thought that was hilarious.
I mean, that might be an effort at fairness.
That's nice. That's nice gamesmanship. I'll say that.
Yeah, something like that. That's a bad form. Yeah. Well, hey, as if that wasn't bad enough. Something else that makes Josh Allen feel like an unwelcome visitor. It was actually a press conference where somebody asked about the potentiality of Josh Allen on Josh Allen crime. No, that's not some special game about Josh Allen versus himself. No, quarterback Josh Allen for the Bills remembers back on November 4th, 2021, where defensive end / edge rusher or whatever you want to call him, Jacksonville's Josh Allen, not only led his team in tackles with 8, had a sack, a fumble recovery, and an interception of Josh Allen. Either way, you could say Josh Allen had a great game. He was a goat or a bum. Am I right? No. But with all that in mind, they asked him about facing his namesake again. I don't know if that's even the right way to put it, but facing Josh Allen again. And Josh Allen said, "He scares me." That was the first part of a longer quote. I wrote about that exchange and that impact that not only that matchup will have on this game, but the impact that this game will have on potential postseason outcomes on the Jaguar Report of SI. Bing! Anyway, so now we got that plug out the way. We talk about Josh Allen being a big deal in that matchup and his ability to get to the quarterback, perhaps extend his sack count so he could stay tied for first among sack guys in the NFL, which are all 3 AFC guys, by the way. We got Josh Allen, TJ Watt, and Khalil Mack as your trio there. Guys who efforts, well, other than the Jags, at least they're 2-2, but guys who otherwise their efforts are kind of I don't want to say wasted, but certainly not having the impact one would hope. But we don't need to get into Brandon Staley as a coaching effort over there in Los Angeles. That's fine. I mean, what? Anyways, but no, listen, for what's going on there, Travis, what else do you think this defense has to do to account for Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs? You got Latavius Murray carrying the ball in the backfield. What does the Jacksonville defense have to account for?
Well, I spoke to the guys on the Buffalo Bills podcast, Coast to Coast, actually on Wednesday this week, and we kind of just chopped it up for about an hour and a half to kind of breaking this down in detail. And it's a weird thing where Jacksonville's defense so resembles Buffalo's defense in very many ways, in the coverages they run, in the the scheme, and as far as the strengths of the defenses. Even the only thing that Jacksonville's missing is that second pass rusher, but nevertheless, Jacksonville has Tyson Campbell and Darius Williams, who are really, really solid at matching up with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Like, that is a really nice back and forth. That's going to be a good little boxing match to see how that works out. Not to mention the Bills lost. Well, I say lost. I'm sorry. They have Dawson Knox, who was limited in practice on Wednesday, and there are some questions about how effective he will be, because we know we don't have Devin Lloyd, so Chad Muma will be manning that spot since Lloyd had his surgery and he'll be out for at least another week. So there's some give and take on how effective the tight ends for Buffalo will be against our linebacking core, Foye and Chad Muma versus Dawson, Kincaid and Knox. But then the running back by committee, essentially, I'll call it, for Buffalo, well, they're really solid, but also Jaguars are fourth in DVOA and stopping the run. Cool.
Yeah.
So all of this is like working out. Well, these are some strength versus strength boxing match. This would hopefully be one of those lower scoring games where Jacksonville can, well, in the words of Press Taylor, turning into a fist fight from last week. The game plan really does seem the same as versus Atlanta. Obviously, these are two different teams, but yes, if Jacksonville can find a way to turn this game into a fist fight, just to muck it up, make it difficult for Buffalo's offense to do the things that they want to do, stop the run early on downs, and put them into obvious passing situations, and keep them in the pocket like they attempted to do against Anthony Richardson in Week 1, they have a legitimate puncher's chance of making this a good game for them.
Yeah, Falaronsu Fatukasi is definitely doing his part to keep that middle. It's that edge that's problematic. And I know for all the trouble that Trayvon Walker's been getting, I know he's not Aiden Hutchinson and all that other happy stuff, but his ability to contain the outside is what's going to be tested. And he hasn't necessarily been awful at containing the outside. I'll definitely account for that as well. I would like to see some action from Yasir Abdullah, the young man here, him getting some snaps. I think he could be a factor there too. I know he at least has some pressures on the year in what limited snaps he has.
Well, and the depth for the Jaguars defensive front, well, mainly the outside linebackers will be tested. Because, again, we've seen the highlights of a few plays. The play against Houston, actually two different busted coverages versus Houston. Well, one of them, Trayvon Walker's not on the field, and the other one, you have Josh Allen in coverage. Like, we see these things where it's like, who's that third guy who's going to step up? And to your point, maybe not having Chase Son on the field and instead having Abdullah will be extremely beneficial. And I don't know who's going to step up in that way, but that can be the difference in the game.
And when you take it to really going to the other side too, offensively, the only concern I have, if I am indeed a member of the Duuuval devout, as my guy Travis here is, it's just about getting those connections and playing up to the potential that people went into this year thinking you had. I don't know that the Bills are the team where it happens. I can say that, the Jags defense might be the second toughest that the Bills have faced this year. But offensively, I'm wondering, what do you think the Jags offense needs to do to kind of kick this into gear and actually be explosive? Get some of those third downs.
Well, yeah, they have to convert these third down situations. They have to stop the boneheaded drops. They have to stop the
Mm,
boneheaded penalties. They have to do the small things that they haven't shown the ability to consistently do in a full game this season so far. But anyone who's watched the tape of every game always walks away saying, "Hey, this looks a lot better when I watch it the second time." And this has happened 4 weeks in a row. Every
right.
time we watch the tape, it always looks better when you rewatch it because you realize it's all small stuff. But can they put those small things together and just for a full game and show that they are the team who we thought they were? Like, are they can they do that? And honestly, I believe if there's a week for it to happen, it may be this week because they match up well against Buffalo. Not to mention Buffalo's probably the favorite if you want to keep it 100.
Yeah, it
And
was
that's the
always the Jags being a
yeah,
factor is always a good thing. I agree.
bingo. So now they finally can have that pressing thing that everyone in the media talked about for a few weeks, how everyone seemed to be pressing on offense and et cetera, et cetera. Well, they don't have to worry about that if you're not looked upon as someone who should be successful. Now you can go out there and be free and just play. So maybe from that vantage point, this may be a good thing for the Jaguars.
Yeah, well, and then another good thing for the Jags offensively, Ken Robinson comes back from the suspension. That's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him. And what do you make of it, Travis?
That's going to be an interesting one, man. That's one where I don't know how much. Whew, if I gotta bet my house on this one, man, this is hard because I love Cam, but Walker Little has been playing like a madman so
Awesome.
far recently, and now knowing that we're going to have someone who was playing incredibly, like he was in the top 8, I believe, for tackles in the NFL as far as how often he's left on the island and how much pressure he wasn't giving up. Like this dude he's been really, really well. He's been the best offensive lineman for the Jaguars. And now you're replacing him with someone who many Jag fans did not feel happy with his play in last year, but even before he was injured, let's just keeping it
Right.
real. So, and the last time we saw him, he was post injury. It was preseason, and he had extensive action against the Detroit Lions backup defensive line and had a really rough game in the preseason. That's Cam Robinson. We all remember this. That was just week 2 of this preseason. So is that additional month of rest going to help him get over his injury woes, get over his rust that he was having earlier in the season? Like, it's not just the suspension, it's the fact that he's also coming back from an injury. How is he going to look? And this is a really good front to have your first test. That's a lot. That is a roll of the dice that no one can really answer you how will Cam Robinson look, because anyone who tells you they know for sure is lying to you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And anything at this point that helps the offensive line depth is a good thing overall. But Travis, it's that time. I need a score, brother.
Mm. So yeah, if I got to go with Jaguars 24, Buffalo 27. But I will give myself an out on this one. If the Jaguars find a way, because I don't know what this offensive line is going to look like, and that is really what's going to make or break this game for me,
I
from my
agree.
perspective.
Right.
If this change with Walker Little to guard results in them being able to actually just run the ball, like just adequately run the ball, and I'm not even saying it has to be something amazing, but you give Travis Etienne 15 to 20 carries for anything 100 plus yards, Jaguars win this game 27-24. I just don't know that that's going to happen. And that's the reason I'm going Buffalo 27-24. But I still think it's going to be a dogfight in a close game.
See, for my money, if that happens and the Jags manage to get adequate stops or, heaven forbid, force a turnover from Josh Allen, because that's never happened. I think the Jags pull this off. I have them winning with the home field advantage. I have them at 23-20. 27-24 just sounds like too high a score for me. Granted, I know that the Bills are explosive, but putting up 48 on the Dolphins doesn't impress me. And by the way, I like the concept of working Walker Little inside to do battle against the Bills' defensive tackles, who are among the best core in the league at that spot. Anything that beefs up that interior line, and Trevor will need to be moving to get away from that. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup all the way around there with that offensive line. But I got 23-20 Jags, and I'm not even the member of the Duuuval. What are we doing here? I don't know.
Hey man, I go with what the tape is telling me, and what the math is telling me, and this is so close the way these two teams go, and I would love to give the tie to the offense, but unfortunately, if I was given the tie to the offense, the better offense right now still is Buffalo. So this is a hard one.
Yeah. No, I hear that. Although I would argue that the Jags receiver core is more complete. Whole other question. But Travis, tell the world where you can be found.
I can be found on all the socials at Travis D. Holmes. That whether that's Facebook, Threads, Twitter, Twix, X, Twitter, whatever. Your mama named you Twitter. I'm gonna call you Twitter. Like we going with that.
That's right.
Like, hey, Travis D. Holmes. You can find me on every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. at Inside the Pigskin for the South Florida Tribune's podcast, where I'm a panel member every week. You can find me on the Duuuval Dive every Friday at 11 a.m. right here. You can also find my writings on bigcatcountry.com, where I'm the news correspondent, covering earlier this week, covering the return of Cam Robinson to the Jaguars from his 4-game suspension, and Dewan Smoot 21-day practice window opening.
That's a big deal for the defense too.
That's an incredible deal. So yeah, if you need anything, hit me up on any of the socials. I'm very active, and I would love to talk it up and chop it up, talking about some Jaguars.
And he'll answer you too, of course. I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter as the SOTG, Threads and Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my ratings with the Jaguar Report and the Black and Gold Banneret covering UCF football. Also, my writings with the 3-point conversion and my work with A7B in Sports on the Jaguars and the Orlando Magic, by the way, Travis Holmes. So that's a fun time there too as well. And don't forget Wednesday nights at 8:40 p.m. Eastern Time, the Student of the Game podcast, which you'll see through either one of these same channels you're streaming through, or on the Student of the Game podcast, as well on all your major podcatchers, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, your mama podcast house, whatever it is. But listen, a great time all the way around. I'm glad to talk some Jags with you, those of you out there that are listening or watching, such as they are. And for my good friend, Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country, this is Kyle Nash of the Jaguar Report, the student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.